So the last time I had a Toyota Highlander, it was the hybrid model, and you might remember that I said this. See, in this hybrid trim, I think the Highlander makes a case for itself because it's offering you something that the Telluride doesn't offer at all. And I largely still hold to that opinion. But what if you chopped about 10 grand off the price? Well, and you chopped out the hybrid powertrain as well. Come to think of it, don't do that. There's all kinds of metals, chemicals, and reactions going on, and it might explode or something. But does a more reasonably priced Highlander, one that starts at just over 40 grand, make sense? Especially when stacked up against the competition such as the Honda Pilot or the class-leading Kia Telluride. Or is it more forgettable than the Macarena? Or the Electric Slide? Or the Renegade? Basically, I'll do anything for views. What's going on, everyone? Jax here, totally out of sequence with the rest of the video because I forgot to shoot this intro, and today we have the 2021 Toyota Highlander XLE model, as well as a really old Highlander. I'll explain. Okay, let's not waste any time. This Highlander costs $43,625 as tested, which is fairly reasonable for an SUV of this size with its options. This XLE trim comes generally well equipped and gives you quite a lot for that price, not unlike what the original Highlander gave you some 20 years ago. The one you're looking at right now is a 2005 first-gen Highlander with just over 50,000 miles on the odometer. Yes, you heard that right. 50,000 miles in 15 years. It actually belongs to my mom, who doesn't really drive it all that much, apparently. And it's interesting for two reasons. The first is that it's roughly the size of the current RAV4, so cars and SUVs have grown quite a bit in the past 2 decades. This first-gen Highlander cost just under 25 grand back in 2005. Which, if you're wondering, is about 34 grand in today's money, because inflation. But what does any of this mean? Well, my mom's old Highlander is pretty bare bones, with cloth seats, no real frills, and definitely none of the technology people expect going into 2021. Adding that stuff in, adjusted for inflation of course, would quickly balloon the price up very close to the XLE trim's starting price of just over $41,000. But as I said in my review of the hybrid, the regular model is sort of compromised, or at the very least unremarkable, in a number of ways. So let's look at some of the pros and cons, and then decide if you think the regular Highlander would fit your family's needs. Because I'm full of positivity, and I certainly never refer to any cars and SUVs as trash, let's start with the good stuff.
I'm always angry.
The Highlander's 295 horsepower 3.5-liter V6 is perfectly matched to the 8-speed automatic transmission. And in normal driving conditions, it operates pretty much flawlessly. The 263 pound-feet of torque moves the Highlander easily, and it's more than enough for just about any situation you'll find yourself in, even passing at highway speeds. The steering is light, maybe a touch too light, but it's pretty accurate, and the brakes are good, if not a little mushy and kind of Toyota grabby at low speeds, but it's nothing that you wouldn't get used to. And the seats are superbly comfortable for longer trips. I actually shuttled the Highlander back and forth to my parents' lake house over the holidays, and it was incredibly comfortable for the 2-hour one-way trip. Pro tip, these 18-inch wheels come wrapped in plumpy Michelin tires. That, when combined with the plush seats, result in a ride that is unbelievably cosseting. That means like smooth and comfortable. Big wheels and low-profile tires might look cool, but you sometimes pay for it in ride quality. So what are some of the drawbacks? Well, the ride quality might be extremely comfortable, but the suspension damping is a tad soft, and on my usual handling loop, the Highlander moves about in a little bit of a floaty manner. So there's a bit of float in the suspension that seems a bit unnecessary considering how comfortable the seats are and how generous the tire sidewalls are. The infotainment is Toyota's standard unit, which, as hard as it is to believe in 2021, is starting to feel a bit dated. It is fully featured and comes with all the expected connectivity that you want in an infotainment system, but progress is progress, and it is starting to fall a little bit behind, especially when you consider that in higher trim levels, Toyota will sell you a 12.3-inch display that is beautiful and pretty much amazing in every way. So the 8-inch unit feels a bit too small. The gauge cluster is fine, but pretty basic and standard, and the armrests on the doors are weirdly far away, as if the seats are kind of too far inboard for you to rest your arm comfortably on the door. With someone my height unable to rest your arm on the door, it seems that almost no one would be able to rest his or her arm on the door. Also, it kind of looks like an obese Toyota Supra, so there's that. But the biggest decision you're going to have to make is cargo and passenger space, and whether or not you think it's enough to fit your family's needs. There are 16 cubic feet of space behind the third row, and there are just over 48 cubic feet of space behind the second row, which is about average for the class. The second row seats are incredibly spacious, and there's enough room for me to sit behind me quite easily. But the third row is suitable only for very small children and various woodland creatures.
What, behind the rabbit?
Adults would definitely not be happy back there for more than a few seconds. So the Highlander is compromised a bit if you have more than 2 children. Basically, if your family is larger than 4 people, you'd probably want to consider the noticeably bigger Honda Pilot or Chevy Traverse. In terms of hauling people and things, it's perfectly adequate for the class, definitely about mid-pack. But if you're used to taking longer trips, like we are, we tend to take longer road trips and we tend to carry a lot of stuff with us, you generally need more than just adequate. Which is why Mrs. Jax loves her Chevy Suburban. I know that seems ridiculous for a family of 4 like ours, but we go hard on vacations. I even take out the third row for maximum cargo carrying capacity. See kids, back in 2012 when our Suburban was new, you actually had to remove the third row in order to get the maximum capacity. It was a different time back then. So should you buy a Toyota Highlander that's not a hybrid? I probably still wouldn't personally, because other than the extremely cushy ride and the well-calibrated powertrain, the Highlander isn't really setting any new standards in any particular category. But if outright size isn't your main reason for purchasing an SUV, you might be swayed by the Highlander's nicer than average interior, decent amount of safety and technology for the price, and the extremely compliant ride, which some people might prefer anyway. Not everyone wants their family vehicles to handle all Germanic and sporty. I do, but I'm weird. There's also Toyota's reputation for quality and reliability, which definitely counts for something in a family vehicle that'll probably see quite a few miles, and might be the main vehicle for the family. And if you skip out on the $1,000 navigation option, mainly because you have a phone and you're not a moron, then the XLE starting price of over $41,000 seems pretty reasonable, especially considering all of the features and comfort you get standard. It might not stand out in any one category, but the Highlander is a solid and dependable vehicle with a decent amount of space that's about as exciting to look at as a bowl of cold oatmeal, which is kind of where it all began. when you think about it. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I think it's kind of interesting to get various trim levels of the same model to sort of compare, because honestly, I think the Toyota Highlander Hybrid is a really solid competitor in this 3-row SUV class because its hybrid powertrain offers you something special. Maybe a lower spec hybrid that wasn't fully maxed out, like my over 50 grand Tester, would really make sense for some families. As it stands, I think the regular powertrain is very good. It is extremely responsive and well calibrated, but it doesn't offer anything extra, and this is a highly competitive class of vehicles. It's only a matter of time before an update or a refresh or an all-new Honda Pilot raises the bar yet again. So I would strongly urge you, if you are interested in one of these vehicles, definitely do your homework, definitely watch my reviews if they're applicable, and I would certainly encourage you to take some test drives, because you might find that that is what sways you. The ride of this Highlander is extremely plush, and some people might find that preferable to the more buttoned-down rides of some of its competitors. I hope you found this video useful. If you did and you'd like to kind of join my growing car channel community, please consider liking and subscribing. Until next time, ride safe, drive safe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace. Go ahead and assume that the wind is going to be awful the entire time I'm filming. This is an awful day to be filming. It looks beautiful, but it is awful. Oh my God, the wind. I freaking hate it.